Hello and welcome to episode number 25 of Reset Diaries. And I'm absolutely loving that I'm doing this episode with someone whose work is just so inspiring and so encouraging that I couldn't fathom that the level of madness one needs to pull this off. And I was inspired by his story. So let's welcome Tom to Reset Diaries.
Thank you very much indeed, Esther. I'm delighted to be here, even though we're on different continents at the moment.
So let's begin, Tom. I mean, your journey is all over the LinkedIn. Anybody who follows you know what you stand for, what you do in your day job, what's the passion that drives you. So I want to ask you first, how did it all begin?
Okay.
What was that
Well,
moment?
so I'll try to keep it relatively short and pithy. But as you say, yes, I'm a lawyer. So I do corporate transactions, as you say. And I've been doing that for 23 years or so. I've lived in Singapore for 14 years. And since I came to Singapore, that's what I've been doing. In the last 2.5 years, though, as you rightly point out, I've been raising funds and awareness for a charity that's close to my heart, which is Dementia Singapore, by walking or running, mainly walking, with people around McRitchie Reservoir. The reason I did it was simply that, there are, you need to come on a walk and you'll hear it all actually, but there are lots and lots of different reasons for it. But what it's given me over the course of the last 2.5 years, I've walked 10,000 kilometers. I've done 12.5 million steps. I've taken 1,532 people from 53 different countries around McRitchie Reservoir or other parts of the world where I've now rolled this out to. And what it's given me is a sort of new look on life, a new perspective on things where perhaps I was getting a little bit jaded by, as you say, being in the boardroom and doing deals every day. So I get up very early in the morning. I start at 5:35 every morning. I'm up at McRitchie at 6:15, and we see the sunrise every morning at between 6:56 and 7:01. It's very, very fixed and rigid, the sunrise in Singapore, as you know. And we see the sunrise every morning, and we get the opportunity to talk, chat a little bit about what's going on in life, our issues, if you've got any, all in a very safe and secure environment. So that's what I've been doing, and it really has just taken a life of its own. I am quite prolific on social media, but that's the way in which I've drummed up support, encouragement, and interest in it. What actually happened was that I said on LinkedIn that I was going to walk 75 laps of McRitchie Reservoir in 2023, which would have been about 1,000 kilometers. And I put it on LinkedIn and said, if anybody wants to come and join me, please come. And within 3 days, my next 6 weeks were booked out every day, twice a day. So I ended up sort of getting up in the morning to start at 4:30, and then I do one loop at 4:30 till about 6:45, and then I do another one from 7 till about 9:30 ish, and then I'd be in the office absolutely shattered, having done 25 kilometers up there. So I had to sort of scale it back a bit, and that's when I started to put together groups of people. So you can see behind me on my screen, there are lots of different snapshots of people, and we have groups from me on my own, or we have groups of one, or groups up to, I've had 72 people that I've taken out as well. So it's been a wonderful experience. I say 1,500 new people, but I've had a lot of people come back for repeat business. So lots of people have done it 20, 30, 40 times with me. And over these last 2.5 years or so, the whole project has expanded somewhat. So I now also run it in London, New York, Paris, and we've just started in Dubai as well, where I have leaders who are running it with me as well. So today there's a walk going out in Singapore, and there's one going out in New York, and there's one also going out in Paris as well. And we do that under what I've called the sort of walk to talk banner. So it all stemmed from McRitchie Challenge, and now it's sort of grown into something which nobody could have actually ever thought about.
Wow.
Yeah.
To me, it sounds very meticulous, like some of the statistics that you have thrown here.
I do.
So you have like a spreadsheet. You're a nerd.
I'm a total nerd. So this is one of the sort of, I don't know if it's beauties or stupidities of what I do, but I have 3 spreadsheets that I run at any time. So one of which is sort of who's come, who wants to come. every day, Esther, I'm receiving 3, 4 messages from new people nowadays saying, "Oh, are you in Singapore? Are you in London? Where are you? Can I come and do a walk to talk McRitchie challenge with you?" And by that, I'll also sort of write their number, so everybody gets an official number. And then I'll also, if I've gone out with them before, I'll also take a little note to remind me of anything that was important that we talked about. Although there is, as I say, there's a sort of Chatham House rules, McRitchie rules, which is that anything that's said in McRitchie stays in McRitchie. So I'm the source of a lot of gossip, but I can't ever tell anybody it. But anyway, we can come to that as well, because it is interesting that,
Yeah.
that having the ability to have 2.5 hours of time with somebody, or 2 hours 20 minutes of time with people walking, people open up a lot. And actually, over the period of time that I've been doing it, I've opened up a lot more than I think I ever would have done. And I think it's just a natural sort of reaction to being out in the open, having time to think about things. And that's one of the big things that I've really learned from this whole process. So I have that. I also have a spreadsheet which records all the wildlife that I see.
Wow.
So I've seen, tons and tons of wildlife. And again, I'm very happy to talk about that. But you can imagine there's a lot up there. And so I record all of that data, and then at the end of every month, I send that spreadsheet or an update on that spreadsheet to N Parks in Singapore, because
Oh.
effectively I'm doing an audit of the park. So I've seen more snakes, more lizards, more colugo, more wild boar than you could possibly imagine. But I know exactly the numbers that I've seen of all of them and the different types and where I've seen them. So yes,
Okay.
yeah. So there've been some quite impressive animal sightings.
You can be quite a hit among children then. Like you can
well,
literally do it like for kids.
well, we can, and the youngest person to have done it with me, the McRitchie Challenge, is actually 3 years old.
Oh
We
wow.
we did end up actually carrying him quite a long way, and he
Okay.
started to do it on his scooter, so we ended up carrying him and the scooter. But a 3-year-old, and the oldest person to do it was 84. So it's really
Wow.
open to everybody, and the plan around it is to walk. If people have done it lots of times before and they want to run, we can. It's 12.1 kilometers, and it's quite, the terrain is either on a boardwalk or it's quite rocky, so you've got to watch your footing a bit, but it is actually open to everybody, and it really is just a lovely opportunity to meet and greet and chat and talk about life, which is what this has all really been about.
Lovely. We'll talk about all the lessons of life that you have learned by meeting this diaspora of people from all sort of, nationalities to age groups to diversity. But coming back to this initiative of yours, I want to rewind a little bit and ask you that have you shown this kind of madness for anything else before this in your life, or is it like a recurring theme, or this is something really exclusive and special?
No, it's totally new. I mean, back in the day when I was a lot younger and a lot fitter, uh, before I sort of found beer and babies and all that sort of stuff, I used to run marathons, and I did 11 marathons in my time, but not in crazy countries like Singapore where it's ridiculously hot. But no, in terms of sort of what I've done, no, I've never done anything like this before, and I've raised bits and pieces of money, but actually now we've raised $200,000 for Dementia Singapore. We've raised
Wow.
about £50,000 for Medical Action Myanmar, and we've raised about £15,000 for another charity called
And that's all
Plastic
from
Odyssey.
your community who join you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So and
Amazing.
again, as I say, none of it was planned, and it's just all taken off. So it is a little bit exclusive in terms of me never having done it before. But having started it, I realised that I couldn't really finish it. There were times when it could have had a natural end, but I love it so much, and I love meeting so many people, and it has really given me a routine every day, which allows me to focus on what I'm doing and run my life around it. And it's been brilliant, yeah. Because
Wow.
perhaps when I maybe I lost a little bit of direction, and it's just given me that routine back, which is great.
Amazing, amazing. So just to break the flow of the conversation, I want to ask you something fun at this time.
Okay.
So what's harder, closing an M&A deal or walking 25-kilometer before breakfast?
Okay, look, I've done law for a long, long time, and I've closed many, many deals over the years. And so every deal has different complexities, every deal has different things, but nothing compares really to getting up in the morning, meeting lots of new people, and seeing the sunrise over McRitchie Reservoir. It really is a truly outstandingly special view. And every time people come into town and they see it, they think, "Gosh, why don't I live in Singapore?" And they go from there. But so the answer is, of course, my work is very, very important, but I really, really love McRitchie Reservoir as well, and doing what I do,
Okay.
and doing what I do.
And my second question is that did you ever draft an M&A contract in your head while walking?
Oh, lots. So this is one of the really,
Yeah?
really, really good things that has come out of this is that when I do it on my own, or if I'm doing it in a small group, you just have
Mm-hmm.
time. You have time
Mm.
to think about
Mm.
issues in life that, or work, or whatever they may be,
Mm.
um, where you wouldn't necessarily have that because we're all so hooked on our mobile phones the whole time.
Yeah, it's a sort of
So
meditation,
yeah,
right?
so it gives you the opportunity just to sit to walk, but to sit back and think and look at what's going on. So I'm able to plan a lot of my day ahead by doing this,
Mm.
and I'm not spending
Mm.
my time on my phone or on the computer or whatever it may be. So for sure, there've been lots and lots of times where I've thought about, drafting, or I've thought about difficult matters around sort of management of
Mm.
people, or
Mm.
how do I deal with this particular issue, or what's the most important thing that we need to do today, so that I can have that little bit of peace time, either on my own with a
Right.
small number of people, and just think about stuff. It's incredibly important, actually, for me now that I have this sort of 2.5 hour period before work starts, where I've just got that little bit of extra time to focus on things which perhaps I wouldn't have if I went into the office and standing around by the photocopying machine or the coffee machine or whatever it might be.
Lovely. Okay, so we move on to our next section of reflections, and here we talk about your connections, culture, and conversation. So I want to ask you, in all this time you have been doing this, is there a particular walk conversation that changed your view on something or that has stuck with you?
What has been so interesting is that finding out actually that so many people have the same issues that I think that I have. And
Mm.
um, if I'm worried about, personal circumstances, personal issues, and suddenly people say, well, I've got that, or my friend's got that issue, or we're in the same boat here, or whatever it might be. I've heard so much stuff that it's too much to even start to sort of talk about. But lots of partners at different law firms that I know that we see on the other side of a table from 10 o'clock in the morning on a deal. I have an hour or 2 hours with them beforehand and hear about them, their lives, where they've got to, how they've got to where they are, what their concerns are, and realizing that actually sometimes those worries that I have are nothing like the
Mm.
worries that other people have. And actually, I'm, doing far better than others. So it's really interesting because we spend such a lot of our lives as human beings running around after whatever it may be, work, children, whatever. But actually
Mm.
having that bit of time to see people and listen to people in a completely sort of harmonious environment with no pressure is the most really great thing.
You think more or less at large people have similar kind of problems, similar kind of issues?
Yeah,
It's
I
just
think
that we have stopped conversing with each other.
very much so, very much so. And we all live in this very, very increasingly digital age that we live in. We're all talking about
Mm.
mobile phones and data and AI and all these sorts of things
Yeah.
I'm talking to my clients about all the time as well. But actually having that bit of time where we actually learn from each other is really, really imperative. And we all have the same issues. It just
Yeah.
maybe packaged up in a different way, or culturally it may have come from for a different reason, but we all do. And actually sharing our story and sharing how we have dealt with these issues is a really, really useful tool for learning yourself, but also to be able to sort of help other people as well. And that's what I've really learned from this. And look, I am no psychologist, I am no doctor, but actually sometimes what I say or what I hear and then respond to can be helpful to people. Just like when I hear from other people telling me, oh, you should think about that, or have you ever thought about that? I get a lot of benefit as well. And so it's a really lovely way of just being able to sort of in nature work together to come to some conclusions.
Right. And since it all began in Singapore and now your walk the talk is running in four countries,
Yep.
four cities, Paris, London, New York, and Singapore. But since it all began in Singapore, I want to ask you, through this lens of walking and talking to people, what have you learned about Singaporean culture or Asian
Well,
culture at large?
again, so many things, but one of the really interesting things about it is, starting with me, before I've now walked McRitchie Reservoir 857 times. Um, but before that, and I said I've lived in Singapore for about 14 years, I think I'd been there once in 13 and a half years, or 12 years, whatever it
Wow.
is before it. So I'd never really been. And I didn't realize that we had this beautiful jungle right in the center, the central catchment
Mhm.
area of Singapore, where you have the most unbelievable wildlife and scenery and environment. It's beautiful. So I didn't know that at first. But then what's really interesting is that so many Singaporeans as well have never been there. So I think people just take things for granted. But what have I learned about cultures in Singapore? Well, actually, what I've probably learned is that all cultures like doing the same sorts of things, and people get on incredibly well over the period of the challenge of many times I've walked it. More and more and more and more people who have come are Singaporean. So initially, it
Mhm.
started with maybe more expats because historically that's where my friendship base was. So initially, it started with more sort of expat people, but then progressively, it's become much, much, much more sort of Singaporeans who've come to do it, and they all love it as well. So we're now supporting various Singapore charities as well, Dementia Singapore, but also we've done a number of things with Pro Bono Singapore, which is the amazing work done by local lawyers for providing legal support to the underserved. Yeah, I think it's just that everybody is very similar, and frankly, we all have the same sorts of issues. So it doesn't matter if you're Singaporean, Indian, English, or American, or South African,
Yeah,
whatever it may be. Um, we
true.
all have the same sorts of issues,
So
and
all in
and
all,
and we all like the ability to be able to spot a snake every now and again, and I've seen a lot of them. So yeah, yeah.
do you think you are changed as a person and that change reflects in your work in some way? And in what ways, if you can talk about it?
I mean, 1,000,000%. I think
Okay.
physically, I am, so much fitter and stronger than I ever was before. I now knock out 20 kilometers a day just doing what I'm doing, no problem at all. And so physically, cardio, etc. It's all been very good. But just in terms of my ability at work, it has allowed me that time, as I said before, to have a couple of hours of me time, downtime. A bit like when you have your children and you say, right, we're off screens now. And you have that
Hmm.
period of time where you say, right, we're going to do something as a family. Or we say it's quiet time because we've all been very excited down at the swimming pool or whatever it is they're doing. Or going to birthday parties. We're going to have some quiet time now. I have that little bit of time where I can do a little bit of introspection and think about issues that have come up, whether they're work related or family related, personal related, and just take a little bit of a step back. Now, I don't always succeed.
Hmm.
I don't always succeed, but it just gives you that little bit of a breather where you can start to think about things. So for sure, it's made a massive difference just in terms of my ability to manage issues at work. That's just personally,
Amazing.
yeah, yeah.
Amazing. Okay, again, some fun question.
Okay.
Now I'll ask you, what's in your walking kit?
Okay, so we start every morning in pitch black. You've got a good 50 minutes before it gets light. So most essential thing is to have a torch. So
Okay.
we have a torch, just one. But it's also quite fun to do it in the dark as well. I've got some amazing pictures of us doing it completely pitch black. But anyway, water is obviously very important. Maybe some nutrient stuff that you can put into it as well. But otherwise, that's it really. You just need to have a
But
good. You
no
just need to have a
headphones, no
no.
earphones,
No,
like you'd never.
again, that's the whole point about it.
Yeah,
You want to hear the nature around you, and you want to hear the people talking to you. So
yeah,
if I'm on my own,
yeah.
then I'll have my headphones, but
Okay.
I'll only ever put one in so I can hear the sounds out this way when I'm listening to a podcast in this one and sounds out there.
Right,
Um,
right.
but so no, it's really about being just catching up with nature. That's what it's all about. And the other thing it is important is to have a good pair of trainers because we've had oh about 16 pairs of trainers that have fallen apart whilst walking, and literally the soles come off. You know how in
Yeah,
Singapore
yeah, yeah, the
they they
full thing
they fall
separates.
apart, yeah. And so we've had
Yeah.
16 or so of those. I've actually got
Ah,
since I've done it, I've got through 15 pairs of trainers. So and they've been
wow.
completely wrecked, yeah. But that's what's important too. Yeah.
And have you ever had to use an icebreaker for a very silent group? Or let me ask you, have you ever had a silent group of walkers and how did you deal with them?
No, because I've now got into a stage where I know how to do it completely. So initially, we were just chatting about whatever, but I we start I usually start by giving just a 2-minute sort of chat to people about what we're doing and why we're doing it, and say to
Mhm.
people, be as open as you want, or not. It's just completely up to you. And then we'll start to walk. And there's one particular point at which I know that I'm now ready to start to talk to people about the reasons for why I'm doing it and what they're doing, and Dementia in Singapore and the great work that Dementia Singapore do and all that sort of stuff. The animals I've seen, the cap laws that there are. And that point is when we've walked past a man called Mr. Chong. So every time we go one particular way, every morning we walk past Mr. Chong and 3 of his friends. And it was only on
Oh,
lap
wow.
it was on lap number 2 that I met Mr. Chong for the first time. And it was only on lap number 220 when Mr. Chong said to me, "You've been doing this every morning for the last 10 months or so. What is it you're doing? And why are they all wearing these baseball caps?" And so from that moment, we had 10 months of just saying hello to each other. But from that moment, Mr. Chong and I became sort of friends, and we have a text message between ourselves. He is there.
Wow.
He's there every morning, and he does 5 kilometers on the boardwalk with his friends. And it's at the stage that I meet Mr. Chong that I then start to talk to people, and I sort of start to talk about what it's about. So I use him as my sort of bellwether for when I've warmed myself up to be able to do it, because you do need a bit of chutzpah in order to sort of get yourself up and running to talk. If people
Wow.
don't want to talk, that's absolutely fine too. And you have different people do different things. Some need to
Yeah.
get off fast, so they go ahead. Some want to go a bit slower. It just depends. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, it really has been extraordinary, and I've got so many people now who've done it, as I say, on numerous occasions, that I can use them to sort of lead walks as well. They know the story about it and what it's about, so they
Mm.
can run it as well. So yeah, it's been phenomenal actually. And you can
So have
see
you
from the
taken?
you can see from the photographs behind me, so you've got a bit of a snapshot as to what it's like. So there are some there in Singapore. There's some there in, I can see us at Buckingham Palace in one of them. One by a telephone box in London.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
there's
see
one.
that.
There's
Yeah.
one just there. I think if you see to my right shoulder, which is at Old Chang Kee in Covent Garden
Oh,
in London. So yeah. So there you go. Bit of Singapore in London.
amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, so Tom, this is wonderful. Now I want to ask you a little bit about movement as medicine. Any listener who right now who is listening to this conversation and who feels stuck in their lives, physically, mentally, or emotionally, what advice would you give them from your own experience and from thousands of people you have met in your journey over last
Yeah.
2 years?
Wow. Well, I should disclaim any liability first and say I'm I'm no doctor nor psychologist or whatever one needs to be to answer a question like that. But I think if from what I've learned, you're not alone. I think is the key point. Obviously, people have different issues, whatever it may be, but you're not alone, and there are people in the world who have issues similar to yours. And the best thing that you can do in any of these circumstances is obviously to seek medical advice if you need it, but is to talk and to listen to people. Everybody will have somebody that one would hope, that they can speak to. If that person is not a friend, there are therapists and counselors that you can speak to. But for sure, the best antidote to any sort of issue around that is to speak to people about it and get it out into the open and have an honest and open conversation with other people and yourself. And I think one of the things that come out of doing this in McRitchie is, as I say, we have 2.5 hours of time in which you can do that. And I am not trying to give advice or anything other than an ear to listen to and an arm around the shoulder if needs be. And the reason why I started it was well, there were many reasons, but one of the main reasons was so that I could build up my friendship base again, because I had lost quite a few, and I was finding life quite lonely because I was getting up, I was going to the office, and I was there until 9 o'clock at night, then doing the same thing again 5 days a week. And come the weekend, I'd be burnt out and tired. And so from doing this, I've developed, a new friendship base. and that's just new people from which I can, you know, learn and talk to and hear from them as well. One of the cool things actually is that I told you earlier that there've been 1,532 people who've done this with me. And I said I had these different spreadsheets, and everybody on these spreadsheets gets a number. Lots of people in that 1,532 people who I've never met before, and I will probably never meet again because I've done 32 corporate social responsibility mornings for companies, be that KKR, DBS, Herbert Smith, UOB.
Do they approach you for
Yeah,
these?
yeah. And so
Okay.
they do it before work. So with that, you know, I've obviously met a lot of people, but many of them I won't see again because they were sort of press ganged into it or forced into it by their bosses. But of that, of that 1,500 odd people, 723 were brand new people that I'd never met before. So that leaves about 800 others who are friends or people who won't see again, roughly. But 732 people, and this is all in my lists, are people brand new to me, which is all what this whole thing was about in the first
Yeah.
place, was about finding new people like you know,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
you're going to come and do it, and I hope we'll be
Absolutely.
friends, and there you go. So look, if that's a long answer to a question which is difficult to answer, but the reality is, I think from what I've learned about meeting all these new people and spending time with them is that you're not alone, and your issues that you may consider you have um, are not they're not sort of individual just to you. Other people have them too, and people are willing to listen. And
Yeah.
the more I have done these walks, the more confident I've also got in telling my story. So there are lots of other reasons as well for why I do this. But initially, I was perhaps a little bit closed. I was a bit of a closed lawyer. Now I can't stop shouting about McRitchie Challenge on LinkedIn, and it's because of the sort of benefits that I've got, and I hope that other people have got out of doing it with me.
Absolutely. If there's one thing which I love from your whole story is you didn't wait for anyone. You just started. Like you didn't wait for
Well,
anyone to come to you. You didn't seek anyone's permission. You just did what you felt right at that moment. And then the momentum you created by,
so
bringing in so many people along with you.
so do you know? Shall I tell you quickly how it actually started?
Yeah.
So the way it actually started was that I'd been in the UK over Christmas in 2022. 2022 had been a very difficult year generally for various reasons, and I'd also broken my shoulder, which made doing exercise really difficult. And it was a pretty miserable year. So in 2022, I also saw a couple of members of my family who have got dementia, and has one of them has got it very very badly now, and has and is really suffering now. And I was very shocked to see her. Um, I got back to Singapore in um, January of 2023, and just because Singapore is so incredibly efficient, I got through Changi in a record time as always. And within about
Yeah.
15 minutes of getting off the plane, I had a phone call from a client who said to me, "Can we go for a beer to chat about a deal that we're doing or looking to do?" And I said, "Yeah, okay, that's a good idea." And then, of course, I was feeling a bit bad about it because I'd really I'd set myself a goal in the year, a bit like sort of dry January is one thing, and then just try to get yourself out of this rut of not so many friends and just feeling a bit lonely, and do what you can. So I said, yes, we should do it. And then I was like, oh no, I wish I hadn't said that. So I rang him back and said, listen, rather than going for a beer, let's go and do some exercise. And he said, oh, it could only be you, Tom, that would ask me something so random like that. But yeah, look, good idea. So I said, let's go and walk around McRitchie Reservoir. So he said that would be a good idea. So we fixed a date. And then, of course, still before the time I got back to my flat, or my house, sorry, I then rang him back again and said, I've had another thought actually. Oh, what is it? You're really not busy today, are you? I said, no, I'm not at all. Um, I'm going to ask you to give me an amount of money equivalent to the amount that you think we would have spent on beer, and I'm going to give it to my firm's charity of the year in Singapore. And he said,
Ah,
okay, all right. I didn't tell him that I wasn't going to be drinking beer because that's very expensive in Singapore, and I didn't tell him it
yeah.
was also not on dry January. I said, you just give me an amount, and so it gave me the opportunity to then reach out to Dementia Singapore, and it went from there. And so the client and I had this lovely walk. We saw two snakes. We saw the blue Malaysian coral snake, which is also known as the
Wow.
100 pace snake. If you get bitten by one of those, you die in 100 paces. And he loved it. We loved it. And he said, can I do it again? And I said, yes. And so then the next day, I said, I'd do it again. And so I started to ask people if they wanted to come, and that's how it just snowballed and snowballed and snowballed, and then it just became what it
Wow.
has. So that was the very first time it happened, and it was completely organic. It wasn't planned.
This truly just reminds me of one quote: "A journey of 1,000 miles begin with the first step."
Yes,
And
exactly.
there's a testimony to that, what you told me just now. But one fun question. We are
Yep,
almost towards the end,
yep,
Tom.
yep.
I want to ask you, which country or city would you love to host your
Oh,
Walk the Talk next, and why?
so we have the official ones. So we have, as I said,
Yeah.
Singapore, London, Paris, New York, and now Dubai. It sounds a bit dull because everyone's done it before, but I'd really like to start one up in Sydney, going from
Yeah.
on that Bondi Coogee walk
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh,
along
yeah,
the
that's
ocean.
lovely.
I think
Yeah.
that would be really, really great. So I do lots of work in Australia too. So I've actually got somebody who I'm lining up to do that with me.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
One
Lovely.
one quite funny thing I was just going to say. I was just thinking about how far I've walked. As of May the 4th, 2024, and I know this because someone had done the maths for me. I'd walked as far as from Singapore to Delhi, and so now I think I'm about as far as from Singapore to about Berlin.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's quite cool. Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I wanted to ask you, you have built this great movement. What's the next big chapter apart from doing this milestone of Singapore to Berlin? What's up on the horizon for you personally, professionally?
Well, professionally, I'm just continuing to do my thing. I spend, as I say, a lot of time in London as well as Singapore, and continuing to do that. I actually really enjoy my job when I'm there and doing it, as opposed to walking. I do it, and so professionally, that's where we are. But just in terms of next steps for McRitchie, I really wanted to start to roll out more. So this walk to talk brand starts to take off a bit more, and that's happening now slowly. I'm doing this all in my spare time, but we have an app being built, which is quite cool, and I've got a board sort of advising me now on how we can make this get a bit more global and work better. And I want to also extend the charitable piece as well, so that we are not just looking at charities in and around Southeast Asia, but obviously where we're doing the walk. So in London, we'll do something for a
Yeah.
UK charity, in Dubai for a UAE charity,
Mhm.
etc. So that sort of stuff. So it all takes time to plan and to do, because I actually, as I say, I do have a day job, but I really want this to develop into something even bigger than it is. I do quite a lot of talks now as well, in London, in Singapore about this, and um, if you if you ask me again in a couple of years' time, it wouldn't be surprising if I said that I'd sort of decided to become a sort of life coach sort of thing. But I'm not planning on that yet. And who knows,
Okay.
a career in politics might be awaiting as well in due course.
Amazing, amazing. Well, if you're in Singapore, do not miss this chance, and I for sure am going to do it next. But I love this conversation, Tom, and
So
I
do I.
wish you very best. But I want you to finish this sentence. The best walks are the ones where.
We don't worry about how we come across. We put our phones away and we have a really good chat.
So before we close this episode, I want you to finish this sentence. The best walks are the ones where.
We don't worry about how we come across. We put our phones away and we enjoy ourselves. How about that?
Lovely. Lovely. Thank you very much, Tom. Thanks for coming to Reset Diaries, and I can't wait to join you in McRitchie Loop.
You are most welcome, as are your family, and as are all your friends and listeners. And all they need to do is reach out to me on LinkedIn or Facebook or however, and I'd be very, very delighted for people to come and join me, wherever they may be.